What up, dog? Some of you may have noticed there's a blue shirt that I wear sometimes that says the art of boat building. And that's this guy. So this is Bob Emser, and he came out to help me for the next, I don't know, almost 2 weeks. We'll be here for 10 days.
We basically met because we both have YouTube channels on boat building, and I've been out this a couple of years ago and helped out and stopped by a few other times and met at boat shows and so forth. So Steve needed a hand with the deck beams, and that's kind of right up my alley, so here I am.
Yeah, so today I'm going to throw Bob on finishing up the stem breast hook, doing the final fit on that. I'm going to jump in the stern and see if I can wrap up the rough fitting on that, and then as soon as we get the breast hooks in, it'll be onto the locust shelf, which will be the first big chunk of locust in the boat. That'll be a lot of fun. So let's get to it. Pretty happy with that. So next up, I'm gonna kind of nip these corners back a little bit more, make sure we've got some room here for airflow and for drainage in case any water gets in there. Cut this inner block and these inner wings and start on the final wedge. So Bob's real close on the stem. He's actually going to start shellacking and any fouling. And I'm getting pretty close in the stern here. So that'll work. We got to go see how this looks in the back, and then we can cut out the block. Okay. And this is why I put the pattern in here. So I did 18 inches, and I actually think I want to bring this out some more. So I want to make these wings a little bit narrower. And this just fits in here, and we've got a pretty good, well, check there I'd like to get rid of. So, okay. So I'm gonna go make up the same pattern again. I'm just gonna add 1.5 inches to the wings. We'll see how that looks. I like it when the parts sitting there don't move.
It means they fit.
So this is the internal dimension. So I want to mark that out, and then we want to add to the outside edge of it because we want the little bit to go underneath and help support those wings. So I'm going to cut to these outside lines, and then that'll be where the rebate is, and I'll cut that on the table saw just like I did last time. So we'll get this cut, I'll nibble up the wings, and we'll see how everything fits, and hopefully get these painted today and can put them in tomorrow. Bob did the final fit up here, and we got everything shellacked and all the fang surfaces anti-fouled. So now we're gonna put everything in place, clamp it nice and tight, drill for the fasteners, take it all apart, clean it up, make sure that there's no sawdust that got caught between from drilling, put on the dolphinite, clamp it all back in again, and bolt it up for real. So, see how it goes. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I got this. This is the center line here. I'm gonna come down from it a little bit. And then I think if I stay on the lower edge for that, we can aim for the higher edge.
I think you're right.
Going through.
Yeah.
As long as I don't poke out the bottom, I should be fine. And then I've got this high on the stem will be square up here.
Mm-hmm.
So if I blow out a little off center on the stem or a little higher or lower, as long as I end up out in that 6-inch timber, which you bloody well should.
The HUD on there? That's crazy.
These are amazing drill bits. We are not sponsored or affiliated with Wood Owl in any way, shape, or form. I am just flabbergasted with how well their drill bits work. So what I found drilling really long holes with these is once it gets going, you're partway in, just kind of go pretty fast and pull back. And I know, right? But what happens is the lead screw leads you, and when you're pulling back gently on it and the chips start to build up ever so slightly, the lead screw breaks. Well, the lead screw doesn't break, but the lead screw pulls. And then you can pull back still going forward, clear all the chips and go back in. Because I found with, I don't know your experience, but with the auger bits, if you load them up at all and you try to go into reverse, they just like bind. So if you can keep going forward. And I found with these, like I said, you just get in there a bit and just kind of like gently pull back, and all of a sudden the whole thing will come out when the lead screw pulls. There's the gigantic one up there. Let me grab that. How'd we do? I see light at the end of the tunnel. We got a 5/8 steel rod here. I'm gonna put this through temporarily because what I wanna do is suck this block up really tight to the stem before we drill any of the bolts that go from port to starboard. Because what we don't wanna do is drill port to starboard and not have this block all the way sucked back. So we'll throw this in here temporarily, we'll drill the other holes, we'll take it all apart. And Joe is working on the lathe right now, threading up the 5/8 bronze bolt. That'll go in here permanently in a little bit. Okay, everything's running away. This is the kind of thing where an extra set of eyeballs really does make a huge difference. Well, it's not as fast as the machine threader, but this seems like it's going to be perfectly fine for the quantity of these that we have to do. Yesterday, Bob and I finished up the breast hooks in the stem and the stern. So they, other than the top face here being faired in when the shelf goes in, they are all done, bedded, fastened into the boat. So that's great, and that let us take the braces out up here, which is making working in the stem and the stern a little bit nicer. Because we don't need to worry about this spreading anymore. This has got that covered. So this top part here is pretty tall. It's fatter than it needs to be. And that's because when the shelf goes in, it's in here at a little bit of an angle. So these need to kind of have a bit of a peak to them. And it's not very much, but I figured it would be easier to do, just get them bolted in there. And then when we go to put the shelf in, we can literally just set the section of shelf there, see where we're hitting, get in here with the power planer, and just knock those down. Shouldn't really be too much of an issue. I'd rather have the kind of the meat to play with than cut them a little bit too shy. So Bob and I are going to start working on the shelf. So the shelf is the next piece of the deck structure. It sits on top of the clamp, on top of the breast hooks here, and that is what the beams are going to ride onto. So that would be basically our beam shelf. So for that, we got a big cedar board and we planed it up. We're going to use that as a pattern, and we're going to wrestle that into the hull and do some spiling and get the shape for the inside of that. And then we can take that out to the locust pile and go see if we got some locust sweeps that will work. I think we do. It's been a long time since I've looked at the locust, but if memory serves me, they're in there. And Paul, you keep asking when we're going to use the locust you gave us. Now is the time. Cool. So we got the cedar board in here, and we're going to do a real rough spiling job. I just want to get it closer to the shape of the boat. So what we're going to do is in the middle, we've got 14 inches from the frame to our board. And we're going to go through and make marks for all of them at 9. So we're going to come here where it's hitting, and we'll measure out, we'll make a mark at 9. We're going to cut those, and we'll slide in a little bit closer. And then where we don't hit at midship, what we can do is we'll just make some little plywood fingers, and we'll tack them down on here, and we'll just make them point out and touch the frame, and then we can use that when we go pick up the pattern. Because there's really no major point in getting this thing to be the exact shape that we need. We just need to get it close enough that we can pull some measurements and be able to use it for our pattern. Bob and I got the pattern made here for the shelf for midship, and we took it out and we dug through the locust pile, and we got like half, 2/3 of the way through the pile, and we didn't find anything that would give us this shape and be clear and free of defects. There's a few boards that I can see down in the very bottom of the pile, and those might do it, but they're pretty wide and they're pretty long, but I think I would rather save those for the covering board. So the covering board is going to have to be basically the same shape as the shelf, and it's going to be up on deck. So I'd rather have one more joint in the shelf and eliminate a joint in the covering board if we can. So it's going to save us digging through a whole bunch of really heavy locusts, and putting the shelf in 4 pieces isn't really a big deal. So we're going to put this pattern off to the side for now. Bob's going to jump in the stem, I'm going to jump in the stern, and we are going to make patterns there for the stem and the stern for probably, I don't know, 8-10 feet, something like that. And then we'll go out to the pile, and it'll be a lot easier to find those. We can find those through the stuff that we've already kind of picked through, and we'll get those in, and we'll kind of add some extensions. And then the last piece of the shelf that goes in will be the very middle, which also happens to be the straightest, which will be the easiest to fit. So the pattern isn't the exact total perfect shape of what we need, but it's enough that I can go find the locust and start getting that cut out.
Some of you might notice that the video is a little shorter than normal this week, and that's on me. I'm the video editor, and the reason for that is that this week I moved my family, my whole studio, and my whole life in the Hudson Valley, and moved it out to Newburyport, Massachusetts, where me and my wife are going to open up a movie theater that has been running here for 38 years and closed since the coronavirus started. And we hope to open up in the next 3 weeks here in town. And that's what's been going on in my life in the background over the past couple of months. But this week, with moving everything, it was just kind of too difficult to do the normal type of episode. So I hope you can bear with me for this week, and we'll be back to normal next week. Steve is going to come out and visit us and go fishing, and we'll definitely share some video of that when he comes. So next week, Steve and Bob will continue working together in the boathouse and putting the shelf together and moving their way through the deck structure. Thanks for joining us, and hope to see you next week.